Thank you all for coming to our event. I'm Beth O'Connell, and I am a board member of the International Convocation of Unitarian Universalist Women. ICUUW is an NGO with ECOSOC status that supports programs to empower women and girls, partnering with our UU connections around the world. Each year, we have a delegation at CSW in New York, and we also host two parallel events here at NGO CSW. This year's theme of addressing poverty, and a majority of the world's poor are women and children. Three of our
board members,
Deborah Pritchard, Lee Boki Burke, and Peg Swain, brought to our attention the work of these NGOs who are using solar power to help women and families. If you want to have an impact on poverty, there is an inexpensive source of energy, and also it's a renewable source, and it's a source that's good for the environment, good for people's health, and good for safety, say in comparison to kerosene, and that's solar energy. And solar power also helps women in ways you may not have thought of. Our speakers are going to show you. I'm delighted to introduce our panel. We have on our panel Sarah Baird, Executive Director of Let There Be Light International, Caroline Mumbasa, who is Health and Education Consultant at Solar Health Uganda, which is the primary implementation partner of Let There Be Light. And we have Ruth Holton Hodson, who is Vice President of Solar Cookers International. And we are very fortunate to have them with us today to show us the work that they are doing with solar power to empower and help women and families. We're going to get started with Sarah and Caroline. So over to you.
Thank you so much. I am going to be sharing a presentation. Again, my name is Sarah Baird. I'm the founder and executive director of Let There Be Light International, and I couldn't be happier to be here discussing how solar power really can help us create a path out of poverty. So Let There Be Light International is a woman-led nonprofit operating in the energy access space. And our purpose is to further global health, women's empowerment, and to combat energy poverty. I'm excited to be sharing the panel with a consultant from our primary implementation partner in Sub-Saharan Africa. We currently work in Uganda, Malawi, Kenya, and Rwanda. And Solar Health Uganda is an NGO in Uganda that is helping to support all of our 12 partners across our 4 countries. Caroline is an expert in health and in women's empowerment. And I'm also really happy to be here with Ruth, because I'm hoping that after our presentations, we'll have some time to really explore our synergies and talk about how we hope here at Let There Be Light International that access to basic lighting can act as a gateway to other renewable and safe energy in the home, including solar cookers. In fact, we've actually found that when families are replacing dirty and dangerous kerosene or candles with a solar light, that they are then able to recognize the impact of cleaner health on cleaner indoor air on their health and the safety of their family, and they're more open to discussing changing the way that they cook. So maybe it's adopting more energy efficient cooking or converting to solar. So it's a really great pairing. It's a wonderful panel to be on. The focus of our programming is to make sure that individuals and families living in our program areas have access to safe lighting. And we find that this is necessary in order to support the health of women and children especially. So in addition to providing families, vulnerable families that are living in off-grid communities and living in extreme poverty, in addition to providing solar lights for them, we also are solar electrifying last mile frontline health clinics. And that's really important because these frontline health clinics are typically serving approximately 13,000 people in their catchment areas. We've solar electrified 86 frontline health clinics with basic electrification that provides indoor and exterior lighting, charging capacity for computers and cell phones, which really helps with supporting getting referrals and other reporting mechanisms as and microscopes. And then we also solar electrify health clinic staff quarters, which has been really wonderful to reduce staff turnover. So after receiving a solar system, a health clinic will typically see their hours of access or hours of providing care increase by 50 to 100%. That fluctuation is a variable that is dependent on what services they're providing. So if there's maternal services, they will see their hours of operation increase by close to 100%. And with the frontline clinics that are providing vaccinations and basic medicines, that will often improve about 50 to 50%. Since we're here at CSW, which I love these forums, I'd like to reflect on how energy access is of critical importance to women's health and safety, both at home and at the health clinics. So the image you're looking at is of a 3-generation family in one of our service areas, and they're standing in front of their mud and thatched home in Uganda. And Irene is a child who lives with muscular dystrophy, and her grandfather is holding one of the portable solar lights that we provide to participants in our programming to support health, safety, and economic stability. A little over 40,000 homes have received these lights. And the light is, it's a portable solar light with an integrated solar panel on the back. There's a lot of different varieties of these that are very rigorously tested and available in these low resource communities or in the capital cities. It can last for up to 72 hours on a single charge and is also able to be used for 3 to 5 years. It's small, but it's really powerful and very rigorously tested, and we both purchase them in country. Let There Be Light International is technology agnostic. We do not manufacture or import any products, but rather we rely on building local markets and building the capacity of our local partners to stimulate those local markets. So advocacy is also really critically important as part of what we do, because if we can reach as many people as possible with the outreach and advocacy tools that we have at our disposal, our hope is that other organizations will adopt an energy access perspective, and ideally a gendered energy access perspective, into their current programming. So we are open to sharing our best practices, our data. We're really hoping that we can change the conversation from a pay-to-play energy access model to one that recognizes that access to energy, and especially solar, is really an enabler of the full range of sustainable development goals and can be an accelerator for current programming that other NGOs are participating in. So I wanted to just take a quick moment to ask our attendees to imagine, if you will, giving birth by the light of a candle or a cell phone. Imagine trying to care for a sick or handicapped child without light. Imagine cooking over a polluting open flame fire and trying to use the sooty, smoky light to do your chores. And finally, imagine, and this is something I've experienced, which is kind of stunning to me, living in an area where we do have access to ready electricity. Imagine leaving your home after dark to use the latrine without access to light, and imagine encountering a snake. The one I encountered was no big deal, but as someone who can't stand snakes, that was terrifying. And there are a lot of snake bites that are responsible for harming women and children, and of course, all family members. So I am going to now hand over this part of the program to my colleague and good friend, Caroline. and she will explain some of the interlinkages that we look at when we're looking at getting people access to basic energy. Caroline, all you.
Yes, Sarah, as we can see in the slide, we have pictures on some of the projects we have done. The upper picture is one of, we are going to visit one of our new mom in our project. And the other down is a picture that we took as we were launching one of our Safe-Birth plus Health home sites. WELL's SDGs are a set of global development goals that have been agreed upon by the international community and are promoted by the UN. Well, our work we do, we directly impact SDG 7, that is access to renewable energy. However, we see it intersects with a range of SDGs, that is SDG 1, SDG 3, SDG 4, 5, 13, and 17. And we see how this really just access to a light impacts the women and the girls. It impacts their health as they have better quality air. It impacts their safety and also the well-being of these women and girls, as mostly they are the main primary home managers at home, making sure everything at home is okay. The showers at home are done. Next slide. Yes, we have the Safe-Birth plus Health Homes project. It's one of our projects. It's a maternal and infant health project. It's community-based, and it combines solar electrification of a health center with the community outreach and education, and also with a donation of a solar light to all moms that come to deliver at the health center that we have targeted for the project. It is a very innovative and very important project, as it recognizes how important safety and health is for all new moms and infants during and also after birth. Like Sarah said, asked us to imagine a mother giving birth while in a health center that has no power. And maybe a mother gets a tea and, you know, the midwife has to stitch you, but there is no power, or the midwife is using a phone torch. So it's a project that we thought of a safe birth, but also we are trying to also to impact the homes that we have, health homes. So when the mother returns home to an unventilated house and using the dirty, dangerous energy sources, it really puts risk of the health. It really puts the health of the baby at risk. This really tells us, that's why the statistics tell us that the most leading cause of the mortality for children under 5 being pneumonia, because of the air pollution, because of from these energy sources, the kerosene lamps and the candles. So allow me take you through how this project, the Safe-Birth plus Health Homes, works here in Uganda.
How can solar lights change lives? Meet Teresa. She lives in a rural community in Uganda and is about to give birth to her second child. Without access to electricity, Teresa uses polluting and dangerous kerosene to light her home. In Teresa's village, there's a new maternal and infant health project called Safe Births and Healthy Homes. Safe Births and Healthy Homes Solar electrifies community health clinics and donates solar lights to new moms and babies. Nurse Charity welcomes Teresa to the maternity ward at the local clinic. The delivery is a success. Teresa returns home with a donated solar light to keep her and her new baby safer and healthier. Shine on and let there be light international.
Thank you, Caroline. I'm going to jump in here to talk a little bit about what it looks like when you get to meet some of these moms. Now, these photos were from last March when I was conducting some site visits, and I just wanted to take a moment to say I did not want to go meet these moms because they had just given birth that day, that morning. We had just arrived at the health clinic to do some site visits, and we heard that there were 2 new moms who had just given birth, and they had just received a solar light to take home with them, and that was fabulous news. We were really happy, and but then one of our partners said, and they would like to see all of us, and there was a fairly big gang of us, and I thought, well, that doesn't make sense. I mean, I've given birth to 3 children. I didn't want a bunch of strangers walking into my room with my new infant. But they were so excited by this project and thought it would be, they wanted to be able to express their gratitude, but also to express what it meant to them to have a light. And when we're talking about solar lighting a path out of poverty, and these women are both having a much safer birthing experience in the clinic with electrification, but then are getting to go home with one of these solar lights with which to take care of their infants. They wanted to talk a little bit about how it was also going to impact their economic stability. So when we talk about solar lighting a path out of poverty, we can't forget that people will spend money in order to get things to keep their families safe. And lighting is pretty critical. If in the middle of the night, you need to take care of a child, or actually during the daytime too, having a light can make a huge difference. And so people they're buying kerosene, they're buying candles, they're sometimes buying disposable flashlights and there's no way for those to be collected or recycled. So they're going to have light anyway. But for many of these women, it is a question of spending 10 to 30% of their total household income on dirty and dangerous and non-renewable lighting. And I would love for people in the audience to take a moment to think about what if they spent 30% of their entire household income just to get a light to make sure that their family was safe. And so when these women are getting to go home, first of all, they own the technology, which is rather extraordinary and empowering for the woman to own the source of power, but they're also able to then contribute in this enormous way to the economic stability of their entire household. And so we hear a lot of stories about how this is increasing women's empowerment as well as health and safety in the home. So I just wanted to highlight that a little bit. We also have had a team of MBA students from the Wharton School at UPenn who did a project for us in 2020 when we launched this project. Actually, we launched it in 2019. They did a project a year after we launched it, and they're going back to do a follow-up study. And they are coming away with the idea that these families, when they receive a solar light, there is a solar return on investment of, the Wharton team came up with 42 times investment. We were looking at more like 10 times investment. I'm sure it lies somewhere in between there. But the fact is that when it costs $15 to get a solar light purchased and distributed and do all the training and survey intake, and then over the course of 3 to 5 years, the families are saving a minimum of $150, but it goes beyond that with improved health. There's an incredible bang for the buck that is it's also contributing to a wide range of the other health and safety impacts. So next slide is Lights for Learning is another project that we started fairly recently. We started this during the pandemic. This was also how solar is lighting a path out of poverty, because in Uganda, the schools were closed down for 2 years, which was the longest shutdown of any country. And there's an NGO in Uganda that creates these beautiful books that are very age appropriate and also topic and context appropriate. And they, in Juba, that is the name of the NGO, and they run the Ugandan Spelling Bee. So they partnered with us to distribute books as well as solar lights to try to make sure that we could help the kids who were out of school during the pandemic remain practicing their literacy, practicing their learning. And unfortunately, a very high percentage of the girls who left school during the pandemic never returned. And so we are trying to push forward with this project to try to reach more and more people. And you should know that in all of our programs, at least 60% of the program participants are required to be women and girls. So I'm going to show you another quick video of what it looks like when a light enters the home.
Many people around the world must rely on dirty, dangerous, polluting kerosene for light. Let There Be Light International donates safe solar lights to vulnerable families in Africa. Solar lights are changing lives. Join us at Let There Be Light International.
So Caroline, I'm going to tap you in now to bring us through the last few slides. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Like you see in our slide, some of the beautiful pictures that we took during some of our Lights for Learning projects. We took some of those pictures in the evening as we were doing some home visits, some of the homes of these children. And as you've seen in our previous animation, how just a light can brighten our home and change the whole environment and mood of the household. So it's really imperative for young people to have access to light, as majorly since girls are often they're tasked with helping their mothers at home. From school, they have left school at 5 p.m. and they rush home, there are chores to do. They're supposed to help their mother with cooking, with fetching water, with helping with their siblings and all that. And then by the time it's already dark, and then they have homework to do. And these are the children we have interacted with during our licensing project, with dreams of becoming nurses, lawyers, teachers, and all that. And therefore, they need to be having time to read their books so that they may be able to achieve their dreams, be able to attain those grades, those points that are needed for you to be able to do those courses. So access, just having these lights really improves their study time and be able to improve their achieve their dreams. I have a background in mental health, and that's why I really want to explain why in all our projects we ensure that home-bound elders have access to light. We make sure that when we go to our community and then they are elders, we make sure we go, and some of them are not able to move, but after our work, we usually go visit in their homes and take these lights to them. Simply because these elders usually are feeling lonely. Some of them are depressed. Some of them are worried, living in extreme poverty. But just having access to a light can really change their lives, make them happier, makes them feel healthy and safe, just because they have a light. And it also makes them feel less stressed, because some of the worries and the stress because they don't have light has been taken care of because of a light. That's why we have partners. We have the Doctors for Global Health, supported with the other 2 doctors from New York. They have added solar into their mental health programs, just to make sure they impact these elders here in Uganda. So just having access to light can really change the well-being of these people.
Hello, I'm Nurse Grace from Uganda. I love serving my community, but I've been nursing without electricity for too many years. Can you imagine caring for someone in the dark without power? But people count on me to keep them healthy and safe. So I have to use kerosene or my phone to assist during emergencies. Like clinics everywhere, we need reliable power to provide healthcare. Great news! Working with local and international partners, electricity is coming to our rural clinic. We can't wait to stay open 24 hours and provide better care to the community. Today, we're receiving solar energy. Look, the electrician has arrived. This is a big day for everyone. Soon, we'll have safe and strong light. I'm so proud to be working in a modern clinic now. Together, we all can shine on and let there be light international.
Thank you. As you've just seen, and in the next slide, we see some of the photos of the health centers we have solar electrified. As of now, we have solar electrified 85 health centers across Uganda, off-grid health centers across Uganda. And as we have just seen in the video, how solar has the power to change just the entire community. From having access to the health center throughout the day, the night, the health workers having increased hours of operation, from the people feeling proud of their health center and can easily access it, and also save on the money, because if the health centers aren't able to work on them, maybe night, they're supposed to be referred to other health centers, like district health centers, and then they're supposed to use a lot of money getting there. But having their health centers electrified that are near them, they can easily, access these health centers and have services and save on their money. So solar power has the light the community out of poverty, improve their health care, and also their economic stability. And together we believe that solar light and solar power can be a gateway to clean cooking and solar cook stoves in the future. So together we shine on. Thank you everyone for listening in.
Thank you, Sarah and Caroline. You certainly have shown us how many ways access to light affects people's lives. I wrote down something you said in your slides: a little light can go a long way. It's certainly true. And for those of us who are involved in the UN, I want to point out here and underscore that, as you say, your project affects and impacts 7 of the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. So it's having an impact on the aims of sustainable development here at the UN. So now let me turn over our presentation to Ruth Holton Hodson, who is the Vice President of Solar Cookers International.
And thank you, Beth. Let me share my screen. So thank you, Beth and ICCUW, for the opportunity to share with everyone the remarkable benefits of harnessing the free energy of the sun for one of our most basic tasks, cooking. It's great to be here alongside solar lights, as together solar lights and solar cookers can create a path out of poverty. Solar Cookers International is a global nonprofit organization that believes that everyone deserves access to healthy and sustainable fuel to cook meals and make drinking water safe. Our mission is to improve human health, economic well-being, women's empowerment, and the environment by promoting climate-friendly solar cooking for vulnerable populations worldwide. Like solar lights, solar cooking has multiple benefits, especially for women. As I'll show, it's an incredibly cost-effective, simple, sustainable, climate-friendly technology that isn't just about cooking a meal. It's about improving human health, particularly women's health. It's about improving the environment, climate, and economic well-being for the world's most vulnerable populations. In fact, it meets all 17 of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Today, I'll give a brief primer on why solar cooking matters, how solar cookers work, their multiple benefits, and SCI's role as a leader of the solar cooking movement and how you can get engaged. Most cooking in the world's poorest regions has been done the same way since the beginning of time, over an open fire. According to the WHO, 2.4 billion people, mostly women, cook over open fires, burning wood, dung, and charcoal, thus breathing in smoke and soot for hours every day. Smoking from cooking from an open fire poses higher health risks than malaria, tuberculosis, and HIV/AIDS combined. The consequences for pregnant women are even worse. Children are also at high risk from indoor smoke pollution. Studies have found that it leads to reduced lung function and a variety of respiratory infections, among other things. Having an open biomass fire in your kitchen is the equivalent to burning 400 cigarettes an hour. And then there is the dangers inherent in collecting firewood. The bundles of wood women have to carry can be greater than 60 pounds, and most of them carry it on their heads. Fetching wood for the fire also places women at high risk for sexual violence, as they have to go out into the forest, further and further away from the safety of their villages. Poisoning is another risk. Liquid fuels are put into reused soda bottles, which can be easily mistaken for a beverage by a child. Finally, there is the time loss. Women are forced to spend most of the day focused on cooking. Think how much more productive women could be if they could leave the cooking to the sun. Now to the environmental factors. Deforestation. Estimates are that one family cooking with wood burns 1 ton of wood a year. Now extrapolate that to the 2.4 billion people cooking mostly with firewood. More than half of the deforestation in sub-Saharan Africa is attributable to trees cut for firewood and charcoal. Deforestation in turn leads to massive erosion, degrading both water and soil quality. And of course, the loss of forests, which serve as critical carbon sinks. Let me also add the consequences of using dung, the removal of which deprives the soil of nutrients, leading to poor harvests, which in turn keeps families trapped in poverty. Finally, the climate impacts. All the fuel that is used releases tremendous amounts of CO2. According to the WHO, cooking with polluting fuels is responsible for half of all black carbon emissions, which is particularly damaging as its warming capacity can be up to 1,500 times greater than carbon dioxide. Now, the really good news. There is a simple, sustainable solution: solar cooking. As this map shows, much of the poorest regions of the world are also richest in the sun. If harnessing the energy of the sun for cooking in these regions became the norm, the impact would be extraordinary for women and the environment. The sun is a free, sustainable energy source. Solar cooking improves the health of women and their families, protects the environment, and creates energy independence. It frees up scarce income used to pay for fuel, for other necessities, and time, so critical for women to pursue other activities to benefit their families and their communities. As I mentioned earlier, solar cooking addresses all 17 of the United Nations Sustainability Goals. So what are solar cookers? Simply put, they are devices that capture the free energy of the sun through the use of reflective surfaces to cook food and pasteurize water. The reflective surfaces, as you can see right here in the picture, are like aluminum foil, mirrors, and metal, which directs the sunlight onto a pot with a black surface. which absorbs the heat. To contain the heat, the pot is then covered by a clear cover, glass or plastic. In fact, you've experienced what it's like to be food in the cooker if you've ever sat in a car with black seats in the middle of the summer with the windows rolled up. The following are a couple examples of solar cookers. On the far left, you'll see that's the simplest one, just reflective panels, and it's cardboard lined with aluminum foil. The solar box oven, which can be built to contain several pots. The parabolic reflector, the one on the far right, directs the sunlight onto the pan, which is sitting on a rod across the center of the cooker, making the surface much hotter, enabling grilling and frying. Critically important about all of these examples is they can be manufactured in local communities using local resources and local workers. No dependency on first world technology. There are several projects around the world training women and girls on how to build solar cookers. Solar cookers get hot enough to fully cook food, but not so hot as to burn or dry out food or damage the healthful nutrients. Also, many foods can be cooked for several hours without overcooking, which allows food to be placed in the cooker early in the day and left into mealtime. Since there's no direct heat source at the bottom, the food doesn't burn. It also doesn't need to be stirred or monitored, freeing up women to spend their time more productively. I might also add, the food cooked by the sun is also delicious. The first time I used my solar cooker, I just popped a sweet potato in the pot, no water, just a sweet potato. 40 minutes later, I had the creamiest sweet potato I'd ever eaten. Since I live in Sacramento, California, which is hot in the summer, I use my cooker at least 2 to 3 times a week. Solar cooking technology can be used for a variety of things. I'll focus on 2 critical to reducing poverty. First, water pasteurization. Water pasteurizes at 65 degrees Celsius. A simple solar cooker heats up to 82 to 121 degrees. These women are using what we call a WAPI, that's that tiny little picture up at the top. It's a simple test tube, partially filled with wax attached to a wire. The user simply hangs the wire on the side of the pot with the test tube in the water. When the wax melts, the water is pasteurized. Solar cooking technology also provides important entrepreneurial opportunities to include building and selling solar cookers, selling cooked food, and solar drying. Here is a Nepalese woman cooking for her restaurant. La Sazón del Sol in Mexico operates a training center dedicated to women and provides workshops in the construction of solar cooking and drying appliances, food drying appliances, that is. With a primary focus on solar food drying, they prepare a variety of foods for sale. The group also produces solar tunnel dryers for sale. We estimate that there are now over 4 million solar cookers being used today. That means over 5.8 million tons of CO2 emissions prevented in 1 year, the equivalent of taking more than 1.25 million cars off the road. While emissions-free and sustainable solar cooking is empowering families, countries are saving tremendous amounts of money through avoided health and environmental costs. If everyone currently cooking with polluting fuels used solar cookers just one quarter of the time, it is estimated over $1 trillion could be saved annually around the world. Now let me tell you a little bit about Solar Cookers International. We're the hub of the solar cooking movement. We're a nonprofit with over 35 years experience in the solar cooking sector. We support the solar cooking movement through advocacy, research, and capacity building. So let me tell you a little bit about advocacy. SCI is currently the only organization solely dedicated to advocating for solar cooking with consultative status to the United Nations. Our consultative status gives us the ability to participate in UN conferences and committees, raising awareness and educating policymakers from around the world about the power of solar cooking to improve the lives of the world's most vulnerable populations. An important part of our advocacy efforts has been focused on getting clean cooking and solar cooking included in countries' nationally determined contributions, or NDCs, which are submitted in accordance with the Paris Climate Accords. As you can see, there's a lot of work to be done. Of the 193 NDCs submitted to the United Nations, 71 mention cooking or an interest in using non-polluting fuels for cooking. Only 2 countries, Somalia and the Central African Republic, specifically include solar cooking as a sustainable approach. An important part of our advocacy tools we've created is our solar impact summaries for almost 100 countries where the data is available. The summaries show the number of solar cookers currently identified in each country, the percentage of the population in each country relying on polluting fuels to cook, i.e. the dung, charcoal, and firewood, and the estimated savings for each country if the population used solar cookers just a quarter of the time. As you can see, the savings in health and environmental costs can reach into the billions of dollars annually. These statistics are invaluable for solar cooking advocates to use when seeking partnerships and support for solar cooking projects in their country. And then on to research. SCI has been leading the effort in the solar cooker sector to develop international standards for household cookers. Our performance evaluation process, or PEP, measures the thermal performance in watts. Standardization is key to innovation and creating a sustainable and profitable solar cooking industry. We have test centers in the United States and at the University of Nairobi. And now, most importantly, capacity building. As I mentioned, we are the largest network of solar cooking organizations. We have hundreds of collaborations in over 135 countries. We promote collaboration, education, and sharing of best practices. We help build and strengthen relationships between solar project directors around the world. To get people started, we have a great toolkit where you can learn everything you like about solar cookers. It's useful for individuals and organizations looking to adopt solar cooking. Perhaps most important is our solar cooker wiki, which can be found at solarcooking.org and provides a wealth of knowledge with almost 1,800 pages of information about best practices. For specific solar cooking information for 142 countries, who to connect with, how to build a solar cooker, how to implement a successful solar cooking project, news and events. The information on the wiki automatically translates into 46 languages. So for all of you who are interested, this is a great place to get started. As I'm sure you all know, just dropping off new technology in a community is a recipe for failure. Critical to adoption is engagement from the beginning of key community leaders, particularly women. It is important to keep in mind solar cooking is a new way of cooking that requires changes to long-standing traditions. So don't have unrealistic expectations. Full adoption will be slow. The quick needs assessment helps organizations assess the need and desire for solar cooking in a community. The compiled data can help project managers and formulate the appropriate solar cooking initiative for their community. In the end, if the benefits don't outweigh the challenges of using existing cooking practices, it will be hard to get women to adopt solar cooking. SCI also continues its involvement in a couple of key projects, which has provided many lessons learned to share with the field. Since 2018, our largest project is at Kakuma Refugee Camp, administered by the United Nations in northwestern Kenya, which houses approximately 200,000 refugees from around the region. Solar cookers used at the camp are manufactured by the Eco Mandate Foundation in Nairobi. They manufacture a family-sized solar box oven designed in Kenya by Kenyans using material found in Kenya and for use in Kenya. Key to the adoption is training. We first target early adopters, then their friends and neighbors, see how easy and cheap it is, and then they want to get a solar cooker. Then these women then become trainers the following year. In addition to solar cooking, they learn about water pasteurization and heat retention cooking. Families are reducing their cooking fuel expenses by 66%, from 600 to 200 Kenyan dollars a week, saving $4 a week because they aren't paying for fuel, a huge percentage of their meager budgets. In Kakuma, over 1,900 people are benefiting from solar cooking, from over 234 solar cookers distributed since 2018. We are also partnering with the Foundation for Sustainable Technologies in Nepal to implement solar cooking in fragile communities. And for the past 2 years, we've been consulting on a project in Yemen to support solar cooking in coastal communities. Let me end with a message from one of the local trainers at Kakuma.
With regard to the solar cooker, actually our students have seen the new technology, and majority of them are acknowledging that it is the solution to Kakuma operations. And like for the female ladies, they are like, this one, we must have it. It will help us to kind of reduce us moving up and down to fetch firewood. It will reduce many risks that majority of them, maybe when they go outside there to fetch firewood, they encounter problems. You see, we have issues of SGBV and things like that. And if actually this is at home, it will help them reduce all this. By the end of the day, it is clean. We have testified, we have seen the food, we are taking it. I'm going to share with my friends. You see? For me, I think this is the way to go for Kakuma as far as cooking energy is concerned. Yeah.
Finally, to learn more and get engaged in spreading the word, please check out our resources. Again, the wiki is at solarcooking.org, and our website is solarcookers.org. We also provide consulting services to organizations interested in establishing solar cooking projects. So with that, thanks again, and I'm happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you very much for that great presentation. I think you've certainly shown us how harnessing the power, the energy of the sun can affect and have an impact on poverty, but also very much on an impact on fighting pollution, deforestation, and climate change. Has a great impact on that. So thank you very much. And to all of our speakers, thank you for showing how solar power can benefit the daily lives of women and all the work that they do. So now, as I said, I'd like to invite questions from the audience.
Okay, Martin Volker says, the stats from these projects are mind-boggling, and yet solar cooking and light is not a hot topic. Maybe it's because people consider it too low tech. And the question is, would you agree that a push for solar cooking and light needs to come from inside those countries? And if so, are such lobbies forming?
I would love to jump in on that one. It is actually, I would say in the industrialized countries where we have ready access to electrons, we don't think about this a lot. And so that is part of the awareness raising that I would say Ruth and our organization and many others are doing. In places where people are living in energy poverty, and whether that's the 860 million without any access to electricity, or the 3 billion people without reliable power, and that includes with cooking, that there are lots of people who are advocating for for a change in this attitude. One of the leaders would be SE for All, which stands for Sustainable Energy for All.org. They are an incredible group. There's a host of really, really active international groups, but also country-led groups. The issue for many of us working in this sector is that access to energy historically has been always part of a market-based solution. That still remains true, and that is incredibly important. And our perspective is all hands on deck are necessary. But the conversation has actually changed in the last 10 years, both within the countries of impact as well as globally, to include social safety net programming, because the fact is that without enormous amount of financing and preferential and beneficial financing, in which like there's debt forgiveness, we're not going to be able to move the needle on this too much. But the international community, led by local governments and local communities, is now aware that if we don't change the way people are getting cooking their food and having access to light, this is impacting the ecosystem for all of us. So it's really not just a question that should be dealt with only locally. There needs to be technology transfers, financing mechanisms, and I think that this is now being included in health and education ministry policies locally. And so there's a lot of great movement and action. Unfortunately, it's such a huge issue that we need to do a lot more awareness raising among the people who already have access to electrons, because the people who are living without that access know the issue. And
yeah, just let me add to that. So that's why we spend so much time focusing our work on the United Nations. We educate, we go to COP every year, educate many countries. And actually 2 years ago, we started our conversation with the Central African Republic and have been working very closely with them ever since. We have engaged the World Bank, and now the World Bank is also helping to promote funding for solar cooking. There is the United Nations has the Climate Technology Center and Network, CTCN is a funding source. And so now we can work with countries and help them apply for that funding source. So it's really about how do you leverage the international institutions to help with your education process. And then, so we often have panels at these events at the United Nations where we feature many of the solar cooking projects from around the world to help educate their peers about the importance, and then helping countries lobby for support at the governmental level, and helping those governments find international sources of funding. But it's slow work.
Yes, my name is Dr. Sadat. I come from LCDAT Foundation, and I'm a partner with Let There Be Light International. And I'm so glad to be here to listen to this amazing project that is really bringing a solution to a very devastating condition of polluting the environment. I think the solar cookers, I've just been listening to the lady that has been speaking about the solar cookers. I think everyone would be really so much interested in this project, in this particular idea of using the solar cookers, because they don't pollute the environment and they are really cheap. And this is what everyone here, especially here in this some women and girls. So I think it will be a very good idea, and everyone here will definitely fight. I'm really looking forward to when we shall have an opportunity to have it here in Uganda as well.
You have a question for them?
You mean a particular question?
Yeah, do you have a particular question? Yes.
Our question is I would want to, I would want this to happen here in Uganda, to have it here in Uganda, and how we go about it. That is my question.
So I would suggest one of the first things to do, and just send us an email through solarcooker.org, and we can have a conversation. But also go on the Solar Cooker wiki, that's solarcooking.org, and you can look up Uganda, and you can see what solar cooking projects there are in Uganda, and connect with them as well. So that's sort of the first step. And we can also help you do that, because you're right, it is so much easier, and saves health and the environment.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And it is even cheaper. It makes life much easier.
So much cheaper.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Claire Nealon says, have you heard of the Wonder Bag, which is like a slow cooker without power, invented in South Africa and used widely? Would be good to pair that with a solar cooker, perhaps, so it keeps food cooked hot for up to 8 hours.
I haven't heard of that particular one, but there are all kinds of inventions that do the same thing, similar to solar cookers, and people are super creating new types of sort of solar cookers all the time. Again, they can go up on the Solar Cooker wiki and see how they can build one themselves, but people are experimenting all the time with it. We are solar cooker agnostic, because we really want the technology to be out there, and for people to do what works for them and experiment. Now, some people even use the shiny inside of potato chip bags and snack bags, and then just glue that onto cardboard, and there you have a very simple solar cooker.
Thank you very much. Today it was really amazing time, because I have seen very interesting presentations from you, and it was my internal feeling all the time. I was attending you. The Solar International was just, I have counted almost 3 years, and always I was attending you. And I was really impressed today, because this technology, which we are going from unrenewable to renewable ones, and our mothers are just on problem of cooking, and we have to care to their health, and all things that I have seen here is you have came with a good research output, and I appreciate this. Actually, I live here in Africa, which is in Ethiopia, and here our mothers are facing problems like you are saying. They have no access to electricity, and I recommend this project that should also cover these mothers in Ethiopia, because I'm just doing my best in researches, especially in solar energy. We have a food which is called a bread-like structure, injera, and it needs some thermal energy, and this thermal energy can be harnessed from solar. I have to do this research actually. Last time there was a conference, international conference, and I have participated there, and they liked the project. But what the problem here is, there is no any linkage with organizations that can inspire you to do on such types of projects, especially on solar cookers. And what I have to go to my question now, how can I link you, and how can I do with you, because I have to care to my mothers, to females, and that's why I'm attending you here. How can I link you, and how can you help me, and how can you show me the way, how can I just spread out all to the rural areas here in Ethiopia, because there is a big problem of access to electricity here. There is no electricity, there is no grid, out of grid. That's why we need solar cookers. We have to do projects here. This is my plan.
Well, you've got the sun. And if I again can direct you, the easy thing is to go to our solar cooking wiki, solarcooking.org. And if you go to the toolkit, you will see, okay, how do I make a solar cooker? How do I build a solar cooking project? And so there are just these different modules that you can go through each one. And then look up also different countries, and you can see maybe in Ethiopia, I'm not 100% sure, but in surrounding countries, who else are doing projects that sound like the sort of thing you'd like to do, and then contact them. And obviously you're welcome to contact us. We're a very small organization, but we will direct you to those resources as well. And then it's important for everyone who is really interested in this to identify other organizations in your country or your other partners, and maybe work together and say we would like to and apply for a grant. We always can help consult. But the first place to start is going up on the wiki. We designed it specifically so people who didn't know where to start or would like to start a project could actually go from 0 to 100 just working through those modules, because we know we're so small, we can't help everybody, but we really want to spread the word. If you bring together some partners, we're always happy to come and make a presentation like this to the partners.
We are really interested in showing and helping others to adopt our model. We are currently not expanding into other locations right now, but there are opportunities to work with Solar Health Uganda to replicate some of our programming or adapt our programming. But really the first step that we're seeing is trying to raise awareness about the possibilities of really changing the health and safety and economic stability of low resource families and communities through harnessing the sun. So reach out to us if anybody would like to find out more about our maternal and infant health project, about our Lights for Learning, and our other projects, including our elders projects.
Two terrific presentations. I learned a lot and I really enjoyed both of them. So thank you very much for that. I have a couple of questions first for Sarah. Can light be used by multiple people easily, or can some homes receive multiple lights? And also, do the lights in cases built in radios?
We really focus on one light per family as we're trying to get as many families involved as possible. And then I'll show you what the light looks like. So this is this is a typical one. You can get them on here in the US. There's the Sun King Pico Plus. What we like is that it's very portable. It has the integrated, and it is used by multiple people. It is about 5 times stronger than a typical kerosene light, which looks something like this, which you can imagine is really incredibly sooty and dangerous. And so the lights are used throughout the family. We do have one recipient would be the program participant, and that's who we take the intake data on and then do the follow-ups with. But we do ask questions about how it's affecting the entire family. The second question, sorry, was
built-in radios. Any chance to build in a radio?
So we don't do that. Again, we're technology agnostic. We look for the best products that are available locally, and we buy them at scale. Once you incorporate other capacities, whether it's cell phone charging or radio, you get into a much more expensive product. And so what we are doing is trying to act as a bridge until there is a more robust social safety net project available that would be able to work with getting people more of the capacity that they need. We recognize that it's about a third of a watt to a half of a watt is not adequate for full electrification. We never ever message around we are fully electrifying people. That is really important for us to underscore, because there's a long way to go. But what we're really concerned about is all the people being left behind or left out of market-based solutions. So we do a lot of education and outreach around trying to encourage people to redirect the savings that they're realizing to definitely basic needs like food and medicine and school fees, but if possible, trying to have people think about saving some of the money so that they then can purchase their own products that might have a radio, might have a cell phone charger. And that's similar to how we've worked with the health clinics. We go very broad, not deep. So we're doing what would be considered fairly basic solar electrification projects. They're robust, and we do monthly check-ins, and we're really, really careful about not installing any white elephants anywhere and just abandoning. We're really, really careful about that. But the idea is that there needs to be, we need to try to reach as many people as we can, and with this enormous need that's out there. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, that did. A great answer. And thank you for showing me an actual kerosene light, which I've never seen before. It does look like be very tough to live with that. My other question is to Ruth. I was wondering if the cookers could be used in some way to generate electricity for when they're not being actively used for cooking.
Well, I don't know. It's an interesting question. If there's an engineer on the panel, they might be able to tell you, but yeah, I don't know.
Martin Volker talking about market-driven kerosene is subsidized by most countries. Wouldn't that provide a rationale to also subsidize solar lighting and cooking?
But this is something that we work on a lot, is raising awareness and trying to get people to advocate for reduction in subsidies for non-renewable energy inputs. The fact is that they have been so entrenched for so long, especially in the context of market-driven solutions, that it's very hard to move that needle. It is changing in several different countries. And maybe even LC, who's in Uganda, or Carolyn can talk to that specifically in Uganda. But I do know that in Rwanda that's changing. It still is a big issue. I mean, we can even start. I'm in the U.S. We have enormous subsidies for fossil fuels still, and bureaucracies are tricky to change, and there's a lot of entrenched feelings around that. So, but yes, absolutely. And unfortunately, the pots for subsidies are limited, so that trying to redirect some of the subsidies is tricky at best, but SE for All, the UN, and other large organizations and mechanisms are working to try to eliminate these subsidies for non-renewable fuel inputs.
And just let me add to that. You know, the liquefied gas industry is hugely powerful, and they're selling their product as climate friendly. Well, I guess it's a little more climate friendly than burning wood, but you know, it's not nearly as climate friendly as the sun. But the sun is free, so no one can make a profit off of the sun. So there's not a lot of incentive, and the LPG industry is really entrenched in many of these countries, and so it's really trying to just get a piece of that pie. And working with organizations within the country, identifying leaders within the country who want to support solar cooking and solar technology as an alternative. But it's a big fight.
One thought that I had was that as you were saying, the part of the world that you're focusing on is a world that gets a lot of sun, gets a lot of sunshine, not like the far northern countries. So, I mean, when you present these products and these ideas to the average person there, are they stunned at these things, or is it something that they had heard about, but or thought about, but never experienced?
Well, when we go to one of the reasons we go to COP every year and we bring the different solar cookers is, people still haven't heard about it. And in different countries, it's like, oh my God, this is so simple. And as I said, it's not a Western technology. You can build it right there with the materials right at the country. So it's a huge incentive. And the best thing to do really is work with social sectors, civil society sector organizations in the countries who can then sort of be the advocates for in the country and help build them, etc. And so, yes, there are people who are hugely surprised and very excited, like some people on this panel, I'm happy to, in this program, who are happy to say, we're like, wow, I'd never heard of this. So, you know, we have a lot of educating to do, but it's exciting to do so.
Yeah, yeah. Sarah?
I would say with lighting, we're in a slightly different category because there is money to be made, right? There is money to be made from solar. And so whether it's individual lights or solar systems, there is a lot of, there are many organizations out there selling it. What our aha moment, our surprise is that there's now some funding going into attaching this to social safety net programming, health and education services. But I would say when we started, we did some pilots about 12 years ago. We formed 10 years ago. There was much less awareness. Probably about 70% of respondents were saying they'd never heard of solar. Carolyn can probably speak to this better than I, but at this point, we're seeing in our intake data about 70% of people now have heard of solar. They don't know how to get it. They can't afford it. But Caroline, what would you say?
Okay, thank you. Like Sarah's mentioned, I think a few years ago, there was really little less awareness about, the renewable energy services or products, but from the data that we are doing and, the field surveys that we are conducting, and nowadays there is really much knowledge that people have. However, access to these renewable energy products is really still a big issue. Access to the good quality products, good solar product, good like cook stoves is really the one that's really now challenging the people in the community.
Julie Steinbach wrote, clearly all three of you have huge passion about these issues. I'm wondering if you had specific personal experiences that drew you into this important work.
Sarah, you founded the organization, so you can start.
Okay.
I really came at this from kind of three different avenues. As a child, I did live in an off-grid rural village in Kenya, only for several months, but it was absolutely a pivotal moment for me. I was 13. And that's kind of one thing that was always a spark. I've been involved in environmental activism also since I was a teenager, and I was working on a lot of projects here in the industrialized north in the U.S. And as the price of solar was plummeting, it became more and more obvious that my friends and some family members in sub-Saharan Africa who are still living without access to renewable energy, that this was a huge opportunity. And a lot of people were talking about leapfrogging over landlines for telephones and going directly to cell phones. And it seemed like an opportunity that was not being talked about that much, with leapfrogging over power lines and going directly to distributed renewables. So I went back to school, got a master's in humanitarian service with a focus on off-grid electrification, and started to work on this. But really the driving thing for me, kind of two things, were I lived for a very, very long time with a chronic disease. I was very sick for a long time, and I cannot imagine having dealt with that without electricity and without light. I literally, that just is mind-blowing to me. It always brings me back to why I'm doing this. So actually that was a main driver. And then having lived in coastal Connecticut, where we were hit by Hurricane Sandy and Hurricane Irene, and living without energy access, it was becoming more and more obvious with the climate issues that people were going to be more open to discussing this. How is climate change impacting people? And having lived for even just a few weeks without access to electricity, I had a lot of peers and neighbors who were willing to start supporting this. So that's my kind of complicated story about this.
Well, and I grew up all over the world, and then my career has been focused mostly on health. And living here in Sacramento, I had heard about Solar Cookers International. So I began donating and thinking, this sort of combines everything I'm interested in, international and health and women. And oh my God, what an amazing product. It's sort of just, you know, all the incredible ramifications. It's really extraordinary. And so that really captured my imagination. And eventually I got on the board, and I've been serving on the board now for over 6 years, I think. So, and as people have said, you know, just harnessing the free energy of the sun, it's really quite simple. And so we really need to get the word out. And it's really been my honor and pleasure to be working with Solar Cookers International.
Thank you. It's always interesting to see what's the personal motivation that gets how moves us to get involved in these things. And I see in the chat a question from Nancy Shields, who I know is in Paris, is joining us from Paris, and she's asking, who produces the little lights that are so useful? Are they about to be locally approved, and are they easily available?
So these lights are primarily still produced in China, the ones that are affordable. We rely on an international mechanism called Verisol that does rigorous testing of all these products. We only purchase and distribute products that have been vetted by Verisol, which was originally part of the IMF and World Bank. And so at this point, the manufacturing capacity of many of the countries where we're working on is still very, first of all, there isn't enough power to have vast manufacturing capacity. So they are not produced locally. And at scale, we need them to be inexpensive, portable, and incredibly resilient. So these guys, you can drive over them with a truck. When it's rainy season, they don't get destroyed. They're so ideally, of course, it would be things that would be available locally that we would want to be purchasing in order to stimulate those local markets, but we're not there yet. I can see that there's a question about the uptake, and I can quickly address that. With lighting, literally nobody cares how they get their electrons. Like, who cares? I mean, you know, they're very interested in adopting this technology. That's why we're really hopeful that we can use the lights as a gateway to talk about cooking, because there's a lot more kind of cultural history tied up in how you cook, what the food tastes like, you know, how it's prepared. They're really, with lighting, absolutely, it's a non-issue. So we're trying to, we don't work with cooking, but we do try when we're doing outreach and advocacy to remind people that reducing the pollution and reducing the soot that they're inhaling and things is of net benefit, and that there is an opportunity to do this through cooking, and solar cooking would be a great avenue. I hope I didn't step on any toes.
No.
And thanks for that. I think, and I just wrote in the chat, sort of the key to get people enthused is having organizations on the ground that are trusted by the community to start the project. And as I said, at Kakuma, then we identify the women leaders and people who want to try it. And then when they show how easy it is, then people get really enthusiastic, and then they want to adopt it. But you have to start with trusted sources. You can't just come in and just hand out solar cookers. Often people say, oh, this would be great for refugees. Well, refugees are so traumatized already that you just can't throw something new at them. You work with organizations on the ground, and then they know how to introduce it, and then they become very popular, especially when they can see they can leave their cooking, they're not paying any money for it. So, and then word gets around really fast, and everyone wants a solar cooker.
I bet. I'm sure that's the case. Okay. Thank you, everybody. It's time for us to wrap up now, but thank you again to our speakers, Sarah, Caroline, and Ruth. Really a great job. So much information, and really raising our awareness about this and its benefit to women, its benefit in reducing poverty, and then this incredible impact a positive impact on the environment and the climate. So it's as you said, it hits all the SDGs. It's got benefits all around. So thank you again for your presentation. Thank to all of you for joining us, and take care.